Miss Daphne Bridgerton.
You have no idea what it is to have one's entire life reduced to a...
Netflix's intriguing romance Bridgerton still has people talking even after its release in late 2020. The drama includes beautiful gowns, accents, and plenty of romance. When it was announced that the show was coming back for season 2, fans were ecstatic. But sadly, we may have to wait a while for that release. So, what are some shows similar to Bridgerton that you can watch to hold you until the new season? Well, in today's video, we'll be going over a list that includes 14 shows similar to Bridgerton that you need to watch. But before we get into the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel with the notifications turned on so you don't miss any of the new videos we post. First up, we have the show Downton Abbey. This is a really great place to start if you want to watch an entire episode built around the fact that something called a snuff box is missing. The show follows the aristocratic Crawley family, their servants, and the changing landscape of the social hierarchy in early 20th century England. Every single character in this series gets a plotline that is juicier than the last, so you'll never get bored. Up next on the list is Hulu's The Great. This show is a great follow-up to Bridgerton, especially if you're into the humor that Bridgerton has. The series comes from screenwriter Tony McNamara, who also wrote the script for the Oscar-nominated film The Favorite, and follows the young Catherine the Great, played by Ellie Fanning, as she's shipped to Russia to marry Peter III, played by Nicholas Hoult. She's ultimately meant to overthrow him and rule on her own when her own fantasies of a royally good time are crushed. Although The Great isn't as steamy as Bridgerton, it's full of humor and includes a character named Holt, who shines as the spoiled doofus bro emperor. Next, we have quite a popular show, Gossip Girl. The show is somewhat similar to Clueless in the same way that Clueless is sort of a modernized remake of Jane Austen's Emma, meaning that Gossip Girl is basically the mid-aughts version of Bridgerton. In Bridgerton, we have the voiceover from the anonymous Lady Whistledown, who ramps up the anticipation by feeding the town gossip in the form of a newsletter that tracks all the comings and goings of high society. Her ability to influence the actions of the characters on screen is similar to the nosy Parker of CW's Gossip Girl, a little tattletale who ran a blog that recounted the ins and outs of wealthy high school socialites in Manhattan. Gossip Girl is also worth a watch as it catapulted its amazing cast consisting of Blake Lively, Penn Badgley, Chase Crawford, Ed Westwick, and more. The third show on the list that we have is Poldark, and if you're looking for the sweeping romance and British accents that Bridgerton has, then PBS's Poldark is perfect, with endless sunsets, waves crashing on many rocky shores, and horseback rides along countless beaches. If it's a ridiculously handsome man with ripped abs walking shirtless out of the ocean that you also want, well, Poldark has that too. The series, now 5 seasons in, stars Aidan Quinn as Captain Ross Poldark, a Revolutionary War veteran hero who, after he was believed to have perished in the fight, returns home to Cornwall to find his girlfriend engaged to his cousin and his father dead. Based on Winston Graham's novels, the series moves at an intense pace as Poldark rebuilds his life and finds new love. Continuing on, we have the show Outlander, which includes corsets, puffy shirts, and very steamy romance, similar to Bridgerton. The adaptation of Diana Gabaldon's novels premiered back in 2014 and was instantly gobbled up by fans, all eager to see actor Sam Heughan play Jamie Fraser, a Scottish Highlander in the 1740s, grab World War II nurse Claire Randall in his arms, and reenact cover photos of romance novels that can be seen everywhere. And yes, you heard that right, a World War II nurse in the 1740s. Along with the steamy romance, Outlander also has a bit of time-traveling sci-fi thrown into the mix, as Claire and Jamie's romance cannot be contained by the space-time continuum. Next up, we have another period drama about love that takes place in the 1800s. HBO's Gentleman Jack shows an alternative to the romantic norm that dominates the other shows on this list. In a stirring performance, Saran Jones portrays Anne Lister, a real historical figure who was a prominent landowner and industrialist. She also happened to be a lesbian and courts her fellow landowner Anne Walker, played by Sophie Rundle, while recording the courtship through a series of cryptic messages that only she can decode. The first season premiered in 2019 on HBO and has a second one that's soon to be released. Sixth on the list, we have Netflix's current crown jewel of original programming, The Crown. The show is almost like 2, soon to be 3 period series in one. Starting at the beginning of Queen Elizabeth II's reign, covers the monarch's rule from the 1950s through the late 80s, with a new cast taking over every 2 seasons. There's lots of drama, scandal, political machination, and a mega production budget. All in all, it's everything great about Bridgerton, minus the sex. Not to mention, The Crown is about actual living people, which is probably for the best. Next, we have Belgravia. Set in the 1840s, the series is is one of fiction, but the backdrop and events that take place around that time are real, including the Duchess of Richmond's ball and the Battle of Waterloo. It explores the mid-19th century fallout of the reveal of a secret pregnancy 25 years after the fact. Basically, it's like a sliding doors version of what might have happened to a certain Bridgerton character if she hadn't found a suitable way to cover up her medical condition. Up next is the show The Lizzie Bennet Diaries. Pride and Prejudice has been remade countless times, but no matter how devoted you are to the 2005 Keira Knightley version, you won't be able to resist zooming through all 100 episodes of this incredibly delightful take on the classic tale. It's told through a series of short vlogs from the quirky and headstrong Lizzie Bennet, and stays remarkably true to the original text, even though it's set firmly in the present. The show also has some star appearances from entertainment mogul William Darcy and med student Bing Lee, also known as Austen's Mr. Bingley. Next on the list is the Alfred Hitchcock adaptation of Daphne du Maurier's novel, Rebecca. The series follows a young woman, played by Joan Fontaine, who marries a rich widower played by Laurence Olivier. But she finds that his late wife Rebecca is still very present at his property. Rebecca died mysteriously years earlier, and the young woman's new husband, Max de Winter, is very guarded about the events that led to this tragedy. It's now up to the new Mrs. de Winter to face down the ghosts that still haunt the halls of her home. 10th on the list is the 1995 miniseries Pride and Prejudice. This adaptation of Jane Austen's novel might always reign as society's preferred take on this beloved story. It aired as a 6-episode miniseries from September 24th to October 29th, 1995. Like the Bridgerton siblings, the Bennet sisters feel the pressure to marry into a financially stable household. After all, it is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. Jennifer Ely stars as Elizabeth Bennet, while Colin Firth plays her brooding love interest, Mr. Darcy. Up next on the list is Harlots. The show actually takes place just a few years before Bridgerton and in a different part of London. The show follows a brothel owner and his struggles to single-handedly provide a better life for her daughters. It places women at the forefront during a time in which they were all too often shunted to the sidelines. Harlots also takes a very clear-eyed and empowering view of sex work, normalizing and destigmatizing the oldest profession. Next up, we have Vanity Fair. Jane Austen isn't the only author whose influence is plainly seen in Bridgerton. William Makepeace Thackeray took shots at British high society in his 1847 serial Vanity Fair, which was adapted by Amazon Prime Video in the 2018's delightful 7-episode series of the same name. Less about the lust and more about the efforts of advancing among the elite, Vanity Fair stars Olivia Cooke as Becky Sharp, who's an extremely cunning and charming young woman who upends every idea of what a lady should be at the time, as she elbows her way to the top, and Cooke, who's an absolute treasure in the role. Of course, Becky's plans get complicated when her heart gets in the way, thanks to leading man Tom Bateman. Last but not least, we have Reign. If you missed this series when it aired on CW, you've been given another chance, because you can still experience this delightful romance about young Mary, Queen of Scots via Netflix. It's got a love triangle between Mary's betrothed and her fiancé's bastard half-brother, as well as eerie decrees from Nostradamus, political intrigue, and 16th century costumes by way of anthropology, but it's the romance of Mary and all of her handmaidens that really center the series. With that said, that's going to wrap up this video. Thanks for watching!